Hey, what's going on, people? Knowledge here. This is a video of my top 10 mixtapes slash albums of the year. This is a video request. A lot of you guys asked me what I listened to and what albums did I feel like were up to par this year of 2014. And I'm gonna start off at number 10. YG, My Crazy Life. Now, a lot of you guys might say, "Oh, why YG? Why him?" I thought this project was basically a hood version of Kendrick Lamar's project. It wasn't, I would say, as creative or as lyrical, but for people who live in LA, this album really embodied a certain mindset or a group of people who come out of cities like Long Beach or Compton or Inglewood or South Central, etc., etc. And I think YG really did a good job. Him and DJ Mustard did a good job of incorporating the old school West Coast music and bringing it up to date to 2014. It did kind of coincide as a story. He was talking about his life as a child and his relationship with his mother and his criminal activities he got into, and just he really embodied that hood aspect of the LA mindset. So I thought it was a pretty good project. He had good production on there. A lot of people won't mess with it, but I thought that was one of the better albums of this year. Coming in at number 9, I gotta say, was Currency, Saturday Night Cartoons, and this is one of my favorite mixtapes this year because me personally, I'm a laid back, mellow type of dude. I love riding in cars and just whether I'm in LA, riding down Crenshaw, whatever, or you know even when I'm on the East Coast, riding down Manhattan or in Queens or Brooklyn, wherever I'm at, and I like to chill at. I love that laid back, smooth, chill, boss type of music, and Currency always really brings that to his projects, and that's why he's one of my favorite rappers to listen to. This mixtape had a real chill type of aspect to it. If you're a type of guy where or a woman, you like to chill in your car and just cruise, this is the perfect mixtape for that. And then he came back, I would say, maybe a month later, and came out with part 2 of Saturday Night Cartoons. And I just thought it was a real good project. A lot of people have an issue with Currency's voice, but I think it fits well with the production that he gets on because it's always a laid back, chill type of vibe he brings to his records. And then with his southern flow, I just think it all comes together well. But that's number 9. Number 8, I have to say, was Tiana Taylor, the 7 album. Actually, I worked on this album. I did some marketing on it. For you guys that don't know who Tiana Taylor is, she's multi-talented, very talented sister. She acts, she writes, she dances. She used to do a little rap, and she's not bad on the eyes either. But I thought this was a very sexy project. It really captured the R&B vibe, and a lot of artists are not really doing that nowadays. They want to, if they are doing R&B, they want to try to, I would say, have more of a crossover appeal, or they'll mix kind of like the pop and try to basically switch sides, have the pop aspect, but then try to please the R&B fans by having the R&B sound. But Tiana Taylor really kept it smooth, sexy, with an R&B feel in this album. I thought it was one of the better projects of this year. One of my favorite projects that came out, not because I worked on it, but for the simple fact that she kept it R&B, and it was real sexy, real smooth. She had a lot of personal tracks on here where she was talking about relationships, or one of my favorite records that was on the project was Dreams of Fucking an R&B Chick, where she basically was responding to, I forgot the brother's name. I believe his name is Tory Lanez. He did a record where he made a record called "Fucking an R&B Chick," and he was basically talking about Tiana Taylor in that record. So just Tiana Taylor being a smart ass, and just her personality, she came back and did a response to it. So I thought it was very clever. It was good for the album. It was very sexy, and she just did her thing on this project. So that would be my number 8 album of the year. Coming in at number 7, I gotta give it to Slaughterhouse House Rules. Now Slaughterhouse is kind of up and down. One minute they may come with, something that sounds really good and embodies hip hop, being that these guys, hands down, are the best hip hop group in the game right now. I mean, these guys can rap circles around any MC you bring to the table. And that name Slaughterhouse really embodies this camp. But sometimes they're up and down. Sometimes they go in a direction that I feel like they shouldn't go into. Sometimes I think they're too lyrical and don't really focus on making actual records. But House Rules I thought was a real good project. I don't find myself going back to it all the time, but when I want to hear some lyrics and I want to hear somebody just chop up a whole beat, or just feel that essence of hip hop, I always go back to this album, Slaughterhouse House Rules, because this was hands down one of the best, I would say, hip hop albums that really embodied the culture and really embodied that aspect of what hip hop is, from the lyricism, from the production, from these guys just bouncing off each other as far as their rhymes and everything. Joe Budden went in, Royce the 5'9", he went in, Ortiz went in, and Crooked Eye, that I think has really stepped up his bars these past couple of months. I mean, he's really been going in, on the bars. If you guys saw the double XL, I believe it was the Shady Freestyle. Crooked Eye really stepped up his bars and really been going in. He's always been nice, but I think he's really just put himself on a different level when it comes to his bars. But I would have to give Slaughterhouse House Rules number 7. Coming in at number 6, I have to say, is Isaiah Rashad, Sylvia Demo. Now, if you guys are not familiar with who Isaiah Rashad is, he's down with the TDE crew, Kendrick Lamar's camp. Every last one of those guys can spit. They all have their different styles, but they can spit. And Isaiah Rashad is one of those guys I think is very promising in the game. If he's marketed right and he continues to have a good work ethic, because I think a lot of his material is not really pushed out to the public the way it should be. And I think he just really needs to get on some more features so people can really see the talent that this guy has. But this was a great project here. A little depressing, I would say that. But when we talk about lyricism and somebody just really getting into who they are as a person and embodiment that into the project, hands down, this mixtape, really defines that. And some of my favorite tracks on here was Heavenly Father. That's by far my favorite track on here. He was talking about his relationship with his father, him dealing with suicide. Another hard track was Shot You Down. Crazy record. Another one of my favorite records on here. Shot You Down was just dope. The way he was spitting in the beginning of the record, and then when the beat drops, he just starts going in on the track. I mean, that's one of the dopest records that I've heard this year. But check it out. Dope mixtape. Coming in at number 5, I gotta say, is Big Crit, Catalacticia. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Catalacta. This had a real southern vibe. A real good project. Not one of my favorite projects from Big Crit, but I have to say, by far, it was one of the better projects that came out this year. Real southern feel to it. Big Crit always seems to give his fan base what they want, but at the same time switch his style up and do something different. I think that's very good that Big Crit knows how to do that, because that's what sustains you in the game. Nobody wants to hear the same thing over and over and over, but I just thought it was a real good project. If you guys haven't checked it out, check that Big Crit out, because he's by far one of my favorite artists out today. I haven't got a chance to work with him in the industry, but dude is mad talented. He produces, writes, and he gives you that soulful feeling that is lacking in the game of hip hop today. But check it out if you haven't. Big Crit at number 5. Number 4 was Diamond District, March on Washington. This album here, was just dope, hands down, from track 1 all the way down to the end of the album. It was just a dope project. Now, the essence that I got from this project was, they just wanted to make tracks that I think will get people in a progression type of mode. It wasn't too preachy or anything like that. And these guys had stepped away for a minute. They came back, and I think they came back in a big way. They hadn't lost nothing. The lyricism was there. The production was there. One of the tracks that stood out to me was a track called "These Bammers." I thought that was just dope. Another one was I believe it was called I forgot the name of the track, but it had the Marvin Gaye sample. When I heard that, I got like that shit face. When you hear that, when you hear a record that's just so dope, you start making that face that you gotta take a shit. That's the type of face I made when I heard that record. I was like, man, these guys really came back in a big way and put out one of the better projects this year. So if you guys haven't checked out Diamond District March on Washington, please go check this out, because this is one of those dope records. I mean, those dope albums that people are gonna be talking about for a while. If you coming in at number 3 is Fairmont's PTSD, Post Traumatic Stress Disorder. This album basically was a play off of like war veterans coming back and dealing with post traumatic stress, but also he flipped it in a way where the everyday person can relate to it. Like, the guy going to work and he might get fired or laid off, and he has to deal with the stress and everything that comes with that. And then he addressed in a record called Jungle, where he was talking about those who live in a disimpoverished neighborhood, or the quote unquote hood, and the ills and drama and everything that comes with that, and how that can create stress and a mental disorder. So I just like the way he put this overall album together and how everything just formulated together, because he really went in a different direction. And the album seemed like you can make a movie out of it from how it was constructed. So go check it out if you haven't. Number 2 is Shy High the Prince, the Black History Project. I thought this was hands down one of the best mixtapes of the year, if not the best mixtape. I struggled between making this one or 2, because that's how great it was. And I mean, Sci High just really, just ripped apart every single beat that was on this joint. He had a joint on there called Mandela that I thought was dope, and it was a play off of Black History, but he took it in a way where he related it to himself and how he wants to be great, like Huey P. and Nelson Mandela and Napoleon. And he had a record on the album, not the album, the mixtape, called February 29th. One of my favorite records on it. And that record just, it really had a live feel to it. And I like records that make you feel a certain way, whether it takes you back to a certain moment in your life, or it just gives you like this happy, exciting feeling. That's what that record did for me. And I just thought that this was a great mixtape that he put out. Really should have been an album, because the way he was going in on a lot of these tracks, and just the way it was formulated together, and the beat selection he got on, it really should have been an album. But I'm looking forward to what he will bring to the album, because if this is what you bring on a mixtape, you can imagine how this guy is gonna come on the album. But that's number 2. And coming in at number 1, the album that I thought was the best project put together, in my opinion, this year of 2014 was J. Cole, Forest Hill Drive. Now, J. Cole really got personal on this album, which I love when an artist come and they get very personal, and they talk about things that are actually going on within their life, or thoughts that they have in their mind. Because I feel like a lot of times, especially with mainstream artists, they're afraid to do that. They're looking for singles, considering that the music industry is a single-driven industry right now. People don't want to sit back and really talk about their personal life, but J. Cole really got personal on this track. I mean, a lot of the tracks were very deep. Some of the ones that stood out to me was January 28th, where he was basically talking about the birth of himself and him becoming a man, and him, self-proclaiming himself to be the greatest. Another one, A Tale from Two Cities. I thought just the way that whole beat was made and the way he was flowing on it was just dope. That's like my favorite record on this album. Fire Squad, very controversial record. He addressed Eminem and Iggy Azalea, and how he feels like a lot of times the white artists are put on a pedestal. The industry is trying to make white artists become the face of hip hop. So that was a very controversial record. A lot of people took heed to it. Some people understand where he was coming from. But all in all, this was a great project. J. Cole didn't really do any marketing for it. He just put it out, and it did great numbers. I think he sold over 300,000, which is really good for today's standards, considering that people are not buying albums anymore. So this is a very successful album, hands down. I think it was the best project from my opinion. Another record that stood out to me was Love Yours. That was a very personal record. I thought it was deep. I thought J. Cole really put that pen to that paper and really bled on his lyrics and really gave him all in this project. So I have to say this was the number one, in my opinion, album of the year. But you guys give me your feedback. Let me know what you thought was your top 10, or do a video response to my my video if you would like. But I'm out. Peace. Check out these albums. I'm out. Have a happy new year, people.